Welcome to America's Boating Club Houston. We are an organization of boaters. Our goal is safer boating through education, service to the boating community, and great parties. This short video is about how to perform the Sea Scout Apprentice Vessel Safety Check. As you know, the Apprentice Sea Scout advancement requirements now require that a vessel safety check be performed. As few as Sea Scout are trained vessel examiners, one thing we can do to help is provide a copy of the VSC form. As the information will not be submitted to the Coast Guard, using an official form seems a bit much. The IT group on the Houston Squadron has placed a copy of the front and back of the form where it may be downloaded. The address of the form is at the bottom of this screen. There are two reasons to do a VSC. First, it lets the boat owner-operator know that he has all the federally required items aboard, and that is important. From personal experience, having the necessary tools, parts, and supplies can turn an emergency into an exciting event. Also, it causes everyone involved to think safety. Recently, there has been a change in the VSE form. This PowerPoint used the earlier version. There are some obvious changes in the new form. The lines around the various blocks are thinner. In the older version, item 15B, electrical systems, fuel systems are a single line item, but in the new version, they are broken out into B, electrical system, and C, fuel system. Also in the new form, there's an additional discussion, item C, carbon monoxide, dangers and prevention. The bottom line is, the previous version of the form may be used. Having dealt with different versions and where to get your copy, let's look at the form itself. The best way to work this form is right to left, top to bottom. The date block. Simply put the current date here. Any format will do. This is a good time to ask the owner-operator to provide the registration certificate. Most states provide one. Texas certainly does. We'll see it again in item 2, required items. Usually it takes a while to find it. Might as well get started looking for it. This is what the Texas Boat Registration Certificate looks like. It's a good idea to compare the registration certificate with the actual boat. Do the numbers on the bow match? Is the HIN number correct? Oh, the HIN number is usually found on the outboard, starboard, aft bulkhead on the outside. After 10 years of doing VSCs, it's still hard for me to find the HIN. You just have to look for it. Owner-operator block. This block has two key elements, the name of the owner-operator and have they taken a boater safety course. The other two elements, the location of the VSC and the question concerning replacement decal, are only for actual VSCs. Vessel information block. This block is important because the information provided will be used to determine requirements in the VSC decal requirements block. After comparing the certificate number, registration number with those on the bow of the boat, and if they are the same, enter them in the line for registration numbers. After checking the HIN of the certificate of number, and if they are the same, enter it in the line for HIN. The length and the powered by may be read from the certificate of number. The type of boat may be observed too. VSC requirements block. On this block there's 17 or 18 elements depending on the version of the form used, where you will make 3 decisions. Is the element required? If the answer is no, mark NA. If the vessel is required to have the item and it is there, mark yes. If you cannot mark NA or yes, then mark no. If you look on the back of the form, there is an explanation of how to make this determination. Sometimes an item must meet additional requirements, such as serviceable and available. Think life jackets. That explanation is included on the downloadable form. Once we finish looking at the rest of the complete form, we will go over all the requirements in detail. This is the reverse or back side of the VSE form. This is the explanation page for the requirements. We come back and look at each one of these in some detail. Recommended discussion items. We will review this list in less detail than we did for the required items. The difference between the two blocks is one is a list of items the operator is required to have by law. The other is a list that prudence suggests are a good idea. Signature block. It's still a good idea to complete the signature block. It indicates who did the examination. One should always be willing to stand up for your work. A willingness to be accountable for what we do is a sign of good character. Skip the examiner number. You don't have one yet. This is a comparison of the current and previous forms. Functionally, they are not much different. The form on the left is a new one, and the other, right one, is the older form. Both may be used. There are 17 or 18 specific requirements for passing a VSE. An explanation of the requirements is found on the back of the VSE form as discussed earlier. Starting with requirement number 1. The state of Texas requires that the vessel registration information be on both sides of the bow of the boat in clear view. This is an example of how the registration information must be placed on the vessel. Failure to use this format, not using contrasting colors, or using numbers less than 3 inches tall fail the examination and must be corrected. Registration is telling TPWD who owns the boat. Documentation telling the USCG who owns the boat. When sailing beyond U.S. waters, it's better to have the vessel documented with the USCG. Either way, there is paperwork that must be aboard. For registered vessels, in Texas waters, it's shown to be on the next slide. This is the out-of-date registration card for a 20-foot fiberglass vessel built in 1972 by Harding. This card must be on the vessel when it's in use. The hull identification number is 2497. It's a lifeboat and is the sister ship to the Jolly Roger, owned by Ship 24, the oldest ship in Sea Scouts. PFDs used to meet the USCG requirement must be serviceable, no rips or tears, and the label must be readable. For most boats, 2 will meet the requirement, 1 for the operator and 1 Type 4 throwable. Most boats will have more on board. The key is it's 1 PFD for each person on the vessel plus the throwable. While you're doing the examination, only the operator's aboard, hence only 2 PFDs. Vessels under 16 feet do not require the throwable. Canoes, kayaks, and jet skis also do not require a throwable. If you don't know how to identify a PFD, take a boater safety course. Lastly, if you don't know the difference between a PFD and a PDF, take a boater safety course. Visual distress signals are a complex subject. The idea is that if the vessel is in distress, it can signal its situation and help can arrive in time to save lives and the vessel itself. In the movie about the sinking of the Titanic, the crew was firing distress rockets in hope that someone would see them and come to help. The very sad part of the story is that another vessel did see the rockets and did not come to help. Dang. Not all vessels need to carry distress signals. The rule is recreational vessels over 16 feet in length which operate in U.S. coastal waters must carry visual distress signals. Then there is the issue of what to carry. Option 1 is 3-day and 3-night pyrotechnic flares. The day flares must make thick smoke, and the night flares must make light. Option 2 is a day flag and a night SOS lamp. Option 3 is a combination of 1 and 2. If a vessel does not operate at night, night flares are not required. If flares are used, they must be in date. That is, they must not have reached their expiration date. Remember, there are two parts to the requirement for VDS. Recreational vessels over 16 feet and operate in coastal waters. In the waters on the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico is coastal waters. Galveston Bay's entrances are all less than 2 miles wide, so VDS is not required inside the jetties. There are 5 requirements. If any one of them is true, the vessel must have 1 or more fire extinguishers. 1. Inboard engine. 2. A double bottom hull not sealed or completely filled with flotation material. 3. Closed living space. 4. Closed stowage compartment with combustible materials inside. 5. Permanently installed fuel tank. There is a note that recreational vessels propelled by outboard motors do not require a fire extinguisher unless they meet one of the 5 previously listed reasons. So if you have to have a fire extinguisher, it must be ready, available, and in serviceable condition. What that means is that it can't be carried at the bottom of a locker. To be serviceable, there are 2 tests. 1 is the pressure needle in the green, and 2, is it less than 7 years old? The date of manufacture is stamped on the bottom of the device. Turn it over and look. If there is no year like 2021, it was manufactured more than 7 years ago and cannot count for the fire extinguisher requirement. If the vessel meets the requirement for having a fire extinguisher, it may need more than one. A fixed fire extinguisher system has a bottle of material in the engine compartment, and it is fired from either outside the compartment or from the steering position. A B-type extinguisher is rated as good for fuel fires. The 1 or 2 indicates the amount of fire retardant contained within. The time and size will be in the label. The key idea in ventilation is for fuel vapors, explosive gasoline vapors, to be vented or blown overboard by a fan. Most vessels will have a fan to blow the vapors out of the engine compartment. Have the operator start the blower and sniff the output side. If you smell fuel, fail the boat. There will likely be a fuel leak. If the vessel has an inboard engine or an inboard outdrive engine, it must have a flame arrestor. It looks like an air cleaner. It does that, but it does more. It should have a label indicating the manufacturer and that it is a flame arrestor. Every vessel on the water is required to have a sound-producing device. A whistle attached to someone's PFD is okay. An air horn is okay. It needs to make a loud enough sound to be heard for 4 seconds at 440 yards. If the vessel is longer than 39.4 feet, it will need a bell too. Navigation lights are required on all vessels operating in times of reduced visibility, such as night, fog, rain, snow. Night is the most common time of reduced visibility. If there are lights installed on the vessel, they need to work. If no lights are installed, it may be the vessel is not operated after dark, like a personal watercraft, or they are a sail or human-powered craft under 23 feet. These vessels are required to have an electric or lighted lantern showing to avoid collision. It is necessary to see the light functioning. This is very simple. All vessels over 26 feet with a machinery compartment and engine space must display this or similar pollution placard. Also pretty simple, all vessels 26 feet and longer must display this or similar placard. If there is a toilet, there must be an output hose. If that hose leads to a through-hole fitting, that fitting must be closed and sealed so that it cannot be accidentally opened to the sea. Usually, the hose will go to a Y valve with one side leading to a through-hole fitting and the other to a holding tank. The Y valve must be locked so everything goes to the holding tank. A plastic wire wrap will meet this requirement. FYI, porta-potty type heads are not covered by USCG documentation. If the vessel is over 39.4 feet or 12 meters, a copy of the navigation rules must be carried aboard. Either of these two books will meet the requirement. There must be other books that fulfill this requirement, but these two are known to me. The state of Texas has determined that all federal rules apply to Texas waters too. For example, if you are operating a vessel on a lake in central Texas at night, the requirement for navigation lights is the same as if you were in the Gulf of Mexico. There was a recent Texas law requiring engine cutoff switches, but that has recently become a federal law too. So federal law equals state law. Clear Lake off of Galveston Bay has an absolute no dumping of anything into the water. The explanation is pretty clear. The boat must be free of fire hazards, in good condition, with bilges reasonably clean, and visible hull structure generally sound. In the more recent VSC form, fuel systems are separated from electrical systems, but when you are examining the boat, you'll probably be looking in the same compartment for both systems. 1. All electrical systems need to be protected by either a fuse or circuit breaker, which is protected from spray. 2. All wiring needs to be corrosion-free. 3. Battery connections need to be clean and free of corrosion. 4. Fuel hoses may not be cracked. Check at the hose clamp for leakage. 5. Portable fuel tanks must be non-breakable, thin plastic. 6. Portable fuel tanks must be secured and have a vapor-proof cap. 7. Installed fuel tanks must be properly ventilated. If the vessel has a heating system on the Gulf Coast or galley, the fuel must be securely stowed. This is a good time to check to see if a fire extinguisher is near the galley too. The Apprentice VSC requirement is not just about vessel safety checks, it also deals with the USCG if font sticker on your ship's boat. You may need one, and ABC Houston can provide it. On this panel is the contact information for the person responsible for getting you one.